Hello there. How are you doing? I have one live viewer. I'm so dumb. I just went live uh on my old channel. Yeah, my old channel, Gen Ives, the channel, which is, for all intents and purposes, a dead channel. So sort of a waste of time. But yeah, this is the channel I'm supposed to go live on. Lobotomy World is the channel. Duh. What the hell are you even like, Jen? You bloody idiot. Bloody stupid, dumb idiot. Um, Probably a bad time to do this, Saturday night. All of my followers are probably out there getting pissed up. No time to watch Jen on a Saturday night. What am I doing indoors on my own? This is a test. This would probably be better if I was doing it through OBS, but I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered to do it through OBS today because that takes opening an additional app, which I don't feel comfortable doing. Maybe I will. Okay, this works. This works. This officially works. This works. I'm still alive. That's basically what I'm here to tell you. I'm still alive. I had the flu, okay? I've had the flu. Like a mega flu, like a really bad November flu. And I had to take it off work, which I don't like to do. Don't like to be struck down by something as stupid sounding as a flu. Have you had your flu jab? Why haven't you had your flu jab? And you always want to say like, well, because I'm tough. I'm tough. Who cares? It's just a flu. I just get. I'm not scared of no flu. I'm not scared of getting a little bit fluey. But then you get the full blown flu, and then you feel stupid for not getting the flu jab. So apologies for, not doing a podcast for about 2 weeks. It's not good. It's not ideal. Just hit 6,000 subscribers and, haven't uploaded anything. But I just want you to know that's just because I've not been very well. I've been preoccupying my time in bed by writing. That's something you can do even when you're ill. But I thought I'd just come on, do an easy squeezy live. Just say hi, just let you know that I am alive and that I plan on getting back to it in a meaningful, real way. Probably tomorrow. I'm probably going to record a proper episode tomorrow, I reckon. Yeah, I've got tomorrow. I've got all day tomorrow. I'm going to do a good episode tomorrow. But for today, I don't know, I'm just going to hang out on here and just remind you that I'm alive. If that means just sitting here in silence to 5 people with no chat going, then so be it, okay? Because as the Gen Z says, effort's lame. Effort sucks. Don't put effort in. Anyway, how are you all? Hello, air quotes comedian. Thank you for wishing me a good afternoon. Although where I am, it's evening, definitely evening. It's like dark and nighttime. But I appreciate the sentiment. Good afternoon. How are you? What have you been up to? Have you also had the flu like me? I feel like everybody who comes in, I have to tell them I had the flu. I feel like podcasting is a very difficult thing to maintain with the flu, you know? And this wasn't just like a basic flu. This was like an evil mega flu. I am fine, been writing, no illness. That's great. I'm glad that you have not had the flu. Trust it. Hey, you don't want it. This flu that I had, I don't think you could handle it. I survived by the grace of God. But a weaker person, not saying that's you, but if it can get me, imagine imagine what it could do to you. That's what I'm saying. So be safe out there, mask up, or get a flu jab or something. It's probably what I should have done. Yeah. I had food poisoning a few weeks ago for a day or two, felt wrong. Yeah, food poisoning is one of the worst, actually, to be honest. I've not had food poisoning for a while, thankfully. I mainly eat pasta, so I had pasta tonight. You can't really get food poisoning from pasta because, well, I don't know why, because it's just great. Jobs96 says, I haven't had the flu, but my cat died, so I kind of win. Well, I'm really sorry to hear about your cat dying. That's awful. That's definitely not a win. I know you're being sarcastic. You're kind of saying like, I win the not oppression Olympics, it's the wrong term, but I win the bad things happening to me Olympics. How old was your cat? What was your cat's name? Did you like your cat? Are you glad your cat died? I wish I had a cat. I don't have a cat because I rent a flat, and it would be kind of cruel for me to have a cat in here. But I have owned cats. Can you ever really own a cat? I have cohabited with cats before. A cat I wouldn't say nearly killed me, but a cat really badly hurt me once. Air quotes comedian says, I have 4.5 kitties. That sounds ominous. What the hell does that mean? Where's the half of the other one? What does that mean? I don't like the sound of that. I hope I'm not cultivating an audience of cat haters here. Be nice to cats. I like cats a lot. I'm actually kind of a cat gal, I'd say. I do like dogs, but it's taken me a long time to learn to like dogs, I would say. Hey Howard, nice to see you. Howard was just watching me over on my old channel, which I'd mistakenly streamed to like an idiot, like a dingus. Air quotes comedian says one comes in from outside and eats the kibble. He or she hangs out but isn't really ours. Oh, okay, that's good. As long as it isn't literally half a cat, that would be. I mean, you could still like. I've seen cats with like two legs. I've seen cats with one eye. All cats deserve love, but I don't like to think of a cat being cut in half. So I'm glad that it isn't. Jobs96 says he was 10. His name was Lubard. Flipping heck. I tell you what, I'm just recently watching the TV series of Interview with the Vampire. It's very good. That sounds like the kind of name a character from that would have. Have you met my cat Lubard in New Orleans? Lestat, have you met my vampire cat Lubard? Lubard, I'm pissed because I spent so much money for surgery and he died. Like, damn. He had a mass on his liver, which is rare in cats. He was my favourite cat. Oh, I'm sorry. That is sad. I'm really sorry that your cat died. That sucks. It's not a nice thing to go through. And it's even worse when you do spend a load of money on it. I remember when my hamster was ill when I was a kid. Sydney, the hamster. I remember saying to my parents, like, come on, like, we could take him to the vet. And they were like, we can't really take him to the vet. He's a hamster. I don't think they were offering much in the way of palliative care for hamsters back then. I mean, hamsters, they just sort of expire, don't they? Although my sister's hamster lived quite a long time. It lived like over 3 years, which is old for a hamster. Although it looked like it was hanging on for dear life. A French name, yeah, exactly. Loubert. It's a good name. I like it. Hello, Porcelain Giant 2965. Nice to see you. God, you lost your dog. Everyone's losing their animals. Come on, we gotta look after them animals. That's the thing about animals. They do die. It's really unfortunate. And Interview with the Vampire is my favourite TV show, and I am a fierce Lestat hater. Yeah, it's easy to hate Lestat on the TV show. Like, I don't know if you've seen the film. If you haven't seen the film, I massively recommend it. I love the movie. I'm a big Interview with the Vampire fan. Shout out my girl Anne Rice. And obviously in that, Lestat is played brilliantly by Mr. Thomas Cruise. And I think he strikes maybe like a more of a balance between him being kind of likable, maybe. Not likable, but there's a fun there. The guy that plays Lestat in the TV adaptation is brilliant, like really, really great, but yeah, easy to hate. He's not like a nice guy. They really like frame him as like an abuser. He sucks. Hello, mightier than the sword, 3179. Thank you. I am feeling better. That's why I've come on here, just to do a kind of, just to come in and say hello, just do a kind of a low key episode. Obviously, this isn't a real episode. My plan is to actually film and put out like a proper video episode tomorrow. But I felt bad, I felt bad not uploading or, doing anything with the YouTube channel for a couple of weeks. I'll be honest, like, I'm still not 100% over it. I'm sorry. I know I sound like a whiny little bitch. "Oh, I'm ill. I had the flu," whatever. It's like, shut up, Jen. Just make videos. But, um, but no, like, I actually am pretty significantly, I have been significantly under the weather. But I can feel the old me coming back. Slowly but surely, I can feel it rearing its ugly, disgusting head. So obviously, I've been watching a lot of TV. That's mainly what I've been up to, just watching television and writing, because you can still write. Hello, Bevish. Nice to see you. Yeah, the lurgy. It's like, so I'm not one of these people that gets ill like hardly ever. Like, I never get ill actually. I'll go like over a year without getting ill, like a year and a half. But then when I do get it, oh boy, I get it, you know? Like, I'm also not one of these people that tends to like phone into work and be ill. I have an impeccable attendance record. Oh, Howard is asking about Pluribus. I was going to ask you guys about Pluribus. Yes, I'm up to date on Pluribus. I've watched the first 3 episodes of Pluribus. I really, really like it. I really like it a lot. I mean, look, obviously, I like Breaking Bad. Everybody does. I loved Better Call Saul. And as much as I love Bob Odenkirk and all the rest of those crazy cats in it, the one who really stood out to me, the person I fell in love with in that show, was Rhea Seehorn. She's so good. So when I heard there was a new Vince Gilligan slash Rhea Seehorn project on the horizon, I put it in my diary. I put it in my to watch list. Must watch Pluribus. And they always have really compelling marketing around these things. And yeah, it didn't disappoint. I thought it was really good. I thought it was really fun. Really fun, like elevated drama, sci-fi. Kind of like a Twilight Zone episode, but with more of a budget, and it's probably going to be stretched over about 5 or 6 seasons, isn't it? Air quotes comedian is not interested in watching television the old-fashioned way. They're going to just wait until it's fully out so they can binge it. And listen, I get that. I understand, but I'm kind of a sucker for the old style. I like watching things from week to week. You know, you watch an episode, and then you all gather around the water cooler, and you discuss, well, what do you think's going to happen? Like, what the hell? What does the fog monster mean? Do you think Tony Soprano's ever going to come out of that coma? That's why I like watching from week to week. I mean, there's so many series that you can just binge right now. Like, there's so many things. It's nice to occasionally slow things down, and it's nice because me and my boyfriend could like spend the whole week being like, "What do you think's going to happen next?" Not that we do that. I mean, we we more so tend to have that conversation right after the episode. But then, like, the rest of the week, we just sort of get on with our lives and don't really mention it again. I've been rewatching an old classic. I don't know if you can hear that siren. I'm sure that you can. I've been rewatching an old classic TV show called HBO's Deadwood. Have you seen Deadwood? Deadwood is incredible. I saw it years and years ago, but I'm doing that thing now where I'm like, my boyfriend's never seen it, so I'm like, oh, I better show you Deadwood. You can be really, you can be like a real bitch. You can be like, oh, you never seen Deadwood? What the hell? Have you never seen Deadwood, you idiot? Why haven't you ever seen Deadwood? Are you dumb? Are you actually dumb? Um, but yeah, like sometimes I think people get put off of Deadwood because they think it's like, well, I don't know what they think it is. I think because it's like a period piece, it's like old west kind of thing. People are like, oh, that doesn't seem like my bag or whatever. But the truth is, Deadwood is some of the best drama you're ever gonna see. Okay? And it's Shakespearean even. It's like The Wire, but in the old Wild West. And they're swearing, they swear. And Ian McShane is in it, including a whole heap of amazing character actors. It's great. It's really is one of the best. I hold it up there with like The Sopranos and the like. Hello, Mitch. How are you doing? Are you feeling better? Also, I forgot last time we talked about TV shows to mention that Alan Ball, who did 6 Feet Under, also did True Blood. Yes, I am feeling slightly better. Yeah, thank you. I'll probably be on here for about an hour max. I'm still quite short of breath, but I'm fine, basically. I'm gonna try and record a new episode tomorrow. I'm sure a lot of you already heard me say that, but just updating the new people in the chat. But yeah, Alan Ball, yeah. True Blood, I really like True Blood. Well, I liked I loved the first couple of seasons of True Blood, and then I feel like it kind of lost its way a bit. But yeah, Alan Ball is really he's really great. I mean, he also did American Beauty, which maybe doesn't hold up as well as the other stuff because of Kevin Spacey and everything. But when American Beauty came out, everyone absolutely loved it. Also, I don't know if you remember, but Alan Ball a couple of years ago had a season of like a new HBO show, and it only lasted for one season. I don't think it was very successful. I can't remember what it was called. I never actually saw any of it, but I remember thinking they looked really interesting from the trailer. I think it was about like queer lives or like families, unconventional families or whatever. But I don't really know what Alan Ball has been up to lately, to be honest with you. Just trying to think if there's anything else of note that I have seen or done. Not really. To be honest with you, I was going to talk about this a bit tomorrow when I record the episode, but like mostly what I've been up to in my, you know, sick bed. Mostly what I've been up to is just like writing little articles and posting them on Instagram. And, you know, they kind of pop off on there. I pop off and then the article pops off. And I did one the other day. I did one that popped off in a way that I wasn't quite expecting it to pop off. I mean, most people got it and liked it, but there was quite a particular amount of people from I would say mainly like trans women who really didn't like what I had to say. Didn't really gel with it. Basically the post was just it was about trans women who essentially bully and other non-binary people. And I was kind of just, like, making the point that, like, in a way, we're all non-binary, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? In the simplistic way of, like, the act of transitioning is itself a sort of non-binary act, and, you know, you can't transition out of queerness and all that kind of stuff. But God, I think a lot of people online, they're, like, very literal-minded, and, like, they did not like the assumption, they did not like the idea that, like, someone would accuse them of being non-binary, you know? I guess I didn't realize that so many people in the trans community actively identified as binary trans. Like, a lot of people seem to really hold that as, like, an identity, like, I'm binary trans. I went from this to this, and that's it. And it's like, okay, so we're just gonna pretend that, like, transition is, like, an easy, seamless process. But there's no nuance online, so, you know, I don't mind a few people being upset with me. I know what I was saying. The Soul Reaper. Hello, the Soul Reaper. XOXO. Are you calling me Claudia Winkleman just because I have a fringe? That's very astute of you. Yes, Claudia Winkleman has a fringe. I have a fringe. Ergo, I am Claudia Winkleman. I guess with the whole kind of, like, binary trans person, like, I guess, as I say, I never really thought that was, like, an identity to claim. I suppose that, I mean, like, I live my life in that way, in that mode. You know, I do not go around saying I'm non-binary. However, I do I guess I read from the hymn book of Judith Butler, in that I think the binary is a prison that we should probably try to climb out of. Hello, BDFS Minotaur 805. Aloha to you too. How are you? You're not the Minotaur, are you? From the Greek story Theseus and the Minotaur? Because I don't approve of that one. Hello, erstwhile grub steak. How are you? Okay, all the cool cats are in the room. Good. I hope that none of your cats have died. One of the things early on in this stream was a lot of people were saying that their cats have died. I don't know if it's cat dying season. What am I drinking? I'm drinking like a cola, like a cheap cola thing. Normal emoji says, I identify as non-binary and as a trans woman. To me, they're really two separate things, and I feel like my non-binariness makes me different from how a lot of other trans women view their gender. I mean, look, that's totally fair, and I feel like that's like one of the things that was being said to me in response to my post. But I still have to say that for me personally, I've never viewed it that way. I my belief is ultimately that we're all, in a sense, non-binary. That's my belief. I don't think any of us really fit into the designated binaries that society expects. And I think we all just have varying different degrees of acceptance about that. And I think in the same way that, I've always believed the messaging to be we need less identification than more identification, you know? I just don't think it's necessarily a great thing to always do that, but what can you do, you know? People don't look, I'm not out here to tell anybody that they're wrong about anything. I guess I guess what was unfortunate was that like the original point of what I was trying to say in the post kind of got muddied a little bit, which ultimately was if you're out here acting like your shit doesn't stink, like you're somehow superior to non-binary people just because you can, you know, integrate into society better. Well, you shouldn't think that way because look, a lot of trans people, for lack of a better term, our privilege to pass, if we do, is based within a system that we don't necessarily have full control over. Like our access to hormones, our access to surgeries, although we can take steps in order to achieve those things are still gate kept from us in various different ways, right? So it's not always our decision how we're perceived and or even how we necessarily feel sometimes. It's a complicated thing. And ultimately, the message was stop being a dickhead bully because you have essentially more in common. Like even if you consider yourself a binary trans person, as nebulous as a thing that is, let's face it, you have more in common with a non-binary person than you do with a cis person. The experiences are more intersectional, they overlap more. So I'm just not a big fan of this like us and them mentality when it comes to trans people and non-binary people. I personally see myself on a non-binary spectrum, but it's not like a choice. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of just like that's my experience. So yeah. Hey Matt. Matt from Catford, where I used to live. But look, I mean, I don't really take this stuff personally anyway. I I do tend to poke the bear sometimes, and I also just sort of like I'm a very opinionated trans woman. I express myself on the internet. And I think whenever you do that, you have to be willing to it's not even that you have to take criticism, you just have to know that it is gonna come. And you also have to be comfortable with the fact that, like, you don't have to please everybody all the time, and that, like, a lot of these people commenting on that post, they're just sort of like, who are they? Like, I don't even care. Like, they're probably like I like to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Like, I will read every comment and everything. But I had people on there calling me a turf, like multiple people calling me a turf, and that's like bizarre. Sirathena says, I'm non binary and I really appreciated your post. Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, it's a weird state of affairs when you can be accused of being a turf for trying to stand up for non binary people. I guess it's because everybody is so hyper focused on their own sense of identity that they don't want to think about the idea that they could in some way be implicit in like prejudice themselves. You know, it's a bit like how a lot of queer white people don't think they are capable of racism because they're queer. It's like it's kind of that kind of thing. It's kind of stupid. But I do express myself in a sloppy way sometimes, an emotional way perhaps. But I am an emotional person. BDSF Minotaur 805 says a turf. Yeah, I know, a turf. I don't get it either. I'll tell you what, like I'll read you out a couple of the choice comments that I got. And if you haven't seen the post, I didn't take it down or anything. You can go and read it on my Instagram at I'm Jen Ives. It's the one where I basically, I don't know, just the one that's got like a really bitchy tone to it. That's my one. Let me just see if I can find one of these amusing comments. Okay, here's one. This one's not calling me a turf, but still, I think it's interesting. So someone here says, speaking as someone who has been out as agender for over a decade, I think I conceptualize what you're trying to say by you are non-binary, i.e. me referring to trans people as also non-binary. But that line of thinking unfortunately reads as erasing when binary trans people are very much aligned with one gender and can read specifically as trans misogynistic. So, what I think is really interesting about this is that a lot of the comments coming at me about this were talking to me in a tone that suggested that I was not trans, or that I was uneducated and didn't understand the nuance of a lot of this stuff. Like some people told me to go and read theory, just not what specifically, but just vaguely just go read theory. Again, maybe I'm just stupid. It's possible. It's happened before. But the idea of binary trans people to me is a bit oxymoronic. Like there's an incongruence there to me. I understand that there are people. I understand not identifying as non-binary in the way that we've colloquially come to understand it today. But as I've said, you can't transition out of queerness. Like, I think the thing that rubbed people the wrong way in my post was probably that I was saying, like, you know, it doesn't matter, what you think. Not it doesn't matter what you think, but like it doesn't matter sort of how well you pass or whatever. There's always going to be situations in your life as a trans person where you are viewed by society as other. And I feel like the very act of transition itself is an expression of non-binary identity. That doesn't come from me not understanding a position of binary transness. I mean, when I first came out, I was probably as trans medicalist as anybody. I think a lot of trans women in particular, when we come out, and obviously I came out like 15 years ago, but when we do and we start living the way we want to live, I think we can be quite defensive and we seek to normalize and validate our wants and desires and our how we feel. And I think a lot of the time we use a trans medicalist framework in order to make it palatable to cisgender people. It's how you come up with this kind of like wishy-washy ideas of like, I was born in the wrong body, this idea that like there's some mystical element to it, or you know it's a neurological problem. I've got the, it's like all that kind of stuff. It's like none of us really truly know. Not really. And ultimately it shouldn't matter. Like autonomy and like personal freedom should trump all those things anyway. But we have like a desire to normalize it because it is a hard thing to navigate. So we want to try to explain it as best we can to like cisgender people. And I think I'm definitely guilty of doing that in my early days. Where I am now has been a process over a long period of time of becoming comfortable with the idea that, I suppose, for me anyway, binary transition is a bit of a pipe dream. And although it's a good thing, a perfectly valid thing to think and to aspire towards, I don't think it's necessarily always the healthiest thing on a personal level. But yeah, that's it. That's all I'll say about it really, to be honest with you, because otherwise, what I end up doing or sounding like is just a defensive loser on the internet. And actually, ultimately, if you want to know what I think about it, just go back and read the original post. Because one thing that I believe in and that I've always believed in is giving people the benefit of the doubt and not assuming that they can't understand nuance, satire, sarcasm. You know, I expect you to be able to keep up with it. And if you don't, then you're probably not my audience ultimately. So it doesn't really matter, does it? Or I could just lean into the villain arc and become what people call me. You called me a turf? Well, what do you think this haircut's for? Imagine that if I went like full turf. What would you lot do? What the hell would you do? I don't even know how I would do that. Like what would I do? Hello Cat Scent. Cat Scent says if you're of a certain age, transmedicalism was the story your gatekeepers needed from you to give the letters yeah, exactly. I mean, as I said, like I started transitioning just over 15 years ago. You didn't really feel like you had much of a choice back then other than to appease those strange requirements of the NHS. And it's even if you know better than it, even back then, um, at the end of the day, I still had to do 20 sessions at a psychosexual clinic, which makes it sound like I had shock therapy or something. I didn't, but it wasn't dignified. 20 hours with a psychosexual therapist. You must do 2 years in your lived gender role. It's like, bitch, what are you talking about? So you think I should become the new Blair White? I couldn't become the new Blair White. The thing about people like Blair White is they only really get by temporarily, and they only really get by based on, you know, the fact that they are conventionally attractive to repressed conservative men. BDFS Minotaur asks, how do they even measure 2 years in your lived gender role? Well, exactly. I mean, so basically, like a big issue with it is that they would, I don't know if it's still the exact same way today. I'm sure that it isn't, But back then, for example, it didn't matter if you'd already been living, you know, I mean, the language of it is so archaic and silly, but just for the purposes of explaining it, they would say like, "Oh, you have to live openly, like as a woman," and to them, that covers dressing a certain way, acting a certain way, taking on certain, it's not like you have to, but like it would put you in their favor more if you had, say, a more feminine job, more feminine friend network, all that kind of stuff. And say you'd already been doing that for a year previous, it wouldn't really matter because they want it to be 2 years from when they started checking in on you. Do you know what I mean? And I guess they're sort of their thinking behind it is like, oh, you have to walk the walk and you have to see if you can handle it. But the irony implicit in it obviously is that if they're not going to grant you hormones until you've done that, they know that you are going to have 2 years of really struggling, and that actually you would fit in a lot better societally if you did have access to hormones from the get-go. Feels rather gatekeepy, yeah, just a bit. Like the NHS transition pathway is possibly the definition of gatekeeping. Hi MX Eddie Nico 3744. Um but yeah, anyway, I shouldn't just like rant and rave about the NHS. We do sort of have bigger fish to fry at the moment, I guess. But yeah, it was a strange it was a strange process, and the only reason, as I say, that I even bring it up is just to say that these accusations that like I don't understand the sort of like difference between binary gender and non-binary gender is absurd because it's like I understand it, I just don't necessarily agree with it. I just sometimes I feel like that I will read a book, for example, like something by Judith Butler. And Judith Butler obviously is not the only gender theorist here, but they're a good example because they are one of the greatest. But like I'll read it and I'll come away with like, oh, okay, like we need to have less labels, not more. We need to um, escape the prison of binary identity and all this. I'll come away with those messaging. But then I'll see other people who seem to have come away from it with like the complete opposite idea. And I'll be like, no, that wasn't the point of it. You didn't read it right. And then I think, well, maybe I didn't read it right, but I'm pretty sure I did. I'm pretty sure I did. As an aside, I don't know if you know, but Brigitte Empire is moving back to the UK from Croatia. She said if she's going to live in a trans hell, it might as well be in the UK. I didn't know that. What's your take on government-run healthcare as a whole? I always say I'm worried about letting people at such a bigoted system. It's about more than money and access. Yeah, I guess like I do have very I mean like with so many things I have very conflicted opinions on it. I obviously come from the UK and we have the NHS, and it can be a bit of a minefield to talk about it because I feel like when you talk about the NHS, you always have to like do a long preface before you talk about it where you acknowledge how great it is first. And I'm happy to do that because in so many ways it is great. I mean, look at the state that countries that don't have national health services are. Like it can be really bad not to have it. Um at the very least, the NHS is great because it saves lives and it helps lots of people. Um it's a marvel of an institution. But like so many institutions, it's very big. It has lots of different branches. It can be very confusing, and certain parts of it work better than others. And there are upsides and downsides to its efficacy. One of the big downsides is I don't think that nursing staff get appreciated. I don't think they get paid enough. I think they get overworked, and I think there's a culture within the NHS of where its workers are encouraged to feel like they are doing something dignified, which they are, but that takes precedent over them being paid properly. It's kind of like a psychological trick that's like, okay, like, yeah, we don't pay you anything, but you do it for the love, don't you? You do it because you're a good person. And it's like, no, I would like to see the workers in the NHS properly compensated for the great work that they do. Um, I also think that as great as the NHS is in lots of ways, I also think it, unfortunately, can be quite flawed sometimes. I feel like it's something that we don't like to talk about in this country because we love the NHS and we want to keep it and we don't want to see it all become privatized. But we also can't, when it's not working in the way it should, it's not great to just completely ignore that. And then when it comes to trans healthcare, I really don't think I don't think they do enough for us at all. Um, we've always been treated like a little add-on that is that can always be taken away. Do you know what I mean? And it's not ideal. But on a day-to-day basis, dealing with people, nurses, doctors, uh, it's it's a joy. The people that run it are the people that are in it are amazing. And like so many people in this country, the NHS has, I would say, probably saved my life. It certainly helped me when I've needed it, and not having to have the financial pressure and strain of healthcare is obviously a wonderful thing. I do love the NHS, but just because I do doesn't mean that I don't want it to be better. I do want it to be better. I want it to be better because it should be. It just should be. Um, and yeah, the hero job problem is a good way of explaining it. I've never been a nurse. I've never worked in the NHS or anything like that. But I have been a carer. I was a carer for 5 years, a learning disability support worker, and it was a very similar kind of strategy. You know, it's when even when you interview for jobs like that, they they signpost that, like, we're looking for empathetic people. We're looking for people who want to make a difference, i.e., people that don't mind not being compensated financially well enough to live. And it's like, look, you're always going to have people like that who care about other people. And I met some amazing carers who they'd probably do the job for free if it meant that they could have their, rent and food taken care of. But we shouldn't have to be in that position. And most people that I knew couldn't cover their rent properly. And then when that's the position that you're in and you're like overworked and you're doing double shifts routinely, I once did like a 20-hour shift. It's like that's how accidents happen. That's really how bad care happens. So it doesn't really make sense, does it? Did you see Abigail Thorne's vid on how crap trans healthcare is in the UK? It's quite old now, but even more relevant. No, I didn't watch it. I saw it. I was like aware of it, but I'll be honest, I like Abigail Thorne a lot, but I don't really watch her videos because I get a bit I guess I get a bit overwhelmed by watching too many like trans content creators, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like I know already. Like I'm not saying I'm an expert on everything, and Abigail Thorne is like super smart, like big brain research type. But I don't know how much good it does me to like watch stuff like that and then just end up feeling bad. Um, but I am aware of the video that you're talking about. Maybe I did watch it. I don't know. I might just be lying. It's possible that I did watch it. I know it was a little while ago. I remember that. Mitch Arnott says, I was a care worker in a home for people who can't live independently. One of the women had killed her abusive dad. She was very smart and sweet. You'd never know unless she told you. Yeah. I mean that's bleak, but yeah, I also work with people who I mean, look, when you one of the fascinating things about working in care, and listen, it's not a job for everybody. It's not a job that I would recommend. The problem with like being a support worker or a carer is that unfortunately it is a relatively easy job to get in the sense of like you don't need a lot of qualifications to get it. You just have to have like the right sort of like demeanor and passion to get that job. But as a result, I certainly saw a lot of people get that job who shouldn't have had it. Like they somehow blagged their way into getting it and they really didn't have the requisite level of empathy or heart to do it. Um but but yeah, like you have it's a fascinating job because I suppose like residential care homes or places where people live with disabilities or the elderly, people like that. I think society does a lot of work, bad work, to try to keep those people kind of shielded away. I'll give you an example. Like the home that I worked in, it was on a street that I had walked down hundreds of times. But it wasn't until I started working in that home that I even knew it was a care home. I thought it was just like a mansion. I was like, oh, that's a big house. Must be rich people live there. But little did I know, I was like, no, there's like 11 people live there with like, you know, learning disabilities. And it makes you realize that there's like whole worlds, whole networks that you just are not aware of because then they're out of sight. And, it's kind of fascinating because they're like beautiful worlds full of beautiful people. Just unfortunately, just people that maybe struggle with blending in or cohabiting with, mainstream society. But I have a lot of thoughts on the care world. Maybe one day I'll try to put them in order a little bit and maybe like write about my experiences in it. But like, yeah, it's a wild one. I feel like one of the things I've been thinking about a lot for years is how I just feel like although there's a lot more disability representation on UK television nowadays and stuff like that. I do think that there's this whole incredible, like beautiful disabled world that most people just don't know exists and don't have access to. And I really think it is like, I think disability rights, particularly disabled people who need to be advocated for, um, who perhaps don't have their own voice all the time. I think disability rights are like one of the most important civil rights questions of our time. And I don't think we do enough at all to be truly inclusive in that regard. But that's just my soapbox anyway. Um, Mitch says, Jen, I don't need trans women to explain trans life to me. Yeah, no, I mean, was my MO for a while. People would say, like, oh, have you read Sean Fay's book? And I go, why the hell would I read Sean Fay's book? Was that book written for me? I don't know. I don't think so. Obviously, I have now read Sean Fay's book, and it's a brilliant book. And I'm usually always wrong about these things. But my first instinct is always like, I don't need to hear more about all that doom and gloom. Segregation is never respect. I'm sick of them trying to tell us it is. Yeah, 100% agree. I agree with you. I guess one of the issues is that what I'm talking about is I'm talking about those situations where somebody is living in a supported living home because they I mean, look, we have to just lay our cards on the table here. There are people in society that are on paper like difficult to they're difficult to look after on a low budget. Do you know what I mean? Like, so for example, like you have somebody who needs support in the community and the money just will not be there in order for them to have the adequate level of support in order for them to live a meaningful life. And it's disgusting. They should have that. They should have it. They should have whatever they need in order to get the most out of their life. But unfortunately, you see it time and time again. You see people who don't have the resources to have the care and support. Therefore, they don't go out. And that is twisted. Luckily, where I worked, it was person-centered care, and there was a lot of effort made to help people as much as possible in order to live their lives in, what we perceive as, I suppose, the most meaningful way possible. But there are greater philosophers than me. I'm not even a philosopher who've struggled with this in our current landscape. I just ultimately what it comes down to is if there's no money, uh, there's no help. And particularly in private residential care, money's the bottom line. And as I say, no money, no honey. Actually, there was loads of honey available. But yeah, it really makes me sad. I mean, like, for example, like, one of the things that I wasn't aware of before I started working in learning disabilities care was just how vibrant and exciting of a music scene there is within the learning disability community. Like, there is an incredible, almost like underground, like experimental music scene. There's the Osaka Film Festival, which is like basically a learning disabilities film festival. And if you're not aware of that, you should check that out, because like these people are making like some really like original, like interesting art. And we should be giving them the resources to. It's not that we should be giving them, it's that the resources should be available for them to take advantage of. And yeah, they just ain't, basically. Mitch says, true, I was more referring to how I saw an effort to hide away the people I worked with. They claimed it was about their safety only, but I doubt it. Yeah, it's really complex. And like, so I'll give you an example of this. I didn't think I'd be talking about this. I haven't really talked about this a lot, but one of the big criticisms I had about the care home that I worked in was that, and listen, I don't understand the full economic elements of it, but as I understood it, if they accepted somebody to live at the home who had much higher needs, that meant more money in some capacity for the home. Don't ask me how that works, how it doesn't work. I don't really know. But what that resulted in is it resulted in sometimes people being granted to live in the home who really were not appropriate for that house. One of the things about residential support homes is this is people's home. Like, there are people there that have lived there for years and years and years. And there has to be an element of, I mean, like, imagine it. Like, would hate it if someone moved in next door to you who was like abusive to you, right? People, like, as a basic human right, people deserve comfort. They deserve to be allowed to live day to day without being harassed. And so there would be like an incompatibility issue sometimes with people living there. And once a person is in, that's it. It's very difficult to change things, very difficult for anything to happen. And what that ends up, when someone is in the wrong place, i.e. someone is somewhere where their needs cannot be properly met because their needs are maybe too high for the budget of the staff or the amount of staff there are or whatever, then they become a danger to others. And it's like, it's not fair on them, and it's not fair on the people that obviously get affected by it. And it was one of the main reasons why I left that particular home, because I was really getting like disillusioned by that. And you would see people who had been there years, you'd see them like regress into their shell and be afraid to leave their rooms and stuff. It's like, it's horrible, really, really horrible. And ultimately, it all comes down to money at the end of the day. And I'm just not so sure that care and money are like really great bedfellows. I think it confuses things. But listen, I don't have any ideas. I don't have any solutions. Uh, I just know I just know when something isn't right. And I was quite gobby in that job, and I spoke up about it as much as I feasibly could, without getting into a physical fight with the manager. But what can you do? It's also a hard thing to talk about because I'm talking about real people with real lives who I have attempted to stay in touch with over the years, but it's become difficult, and it's a much bigger problem in other places too. I do think there's a lot. I mean, obviously because of like various scandals involving care homes over the years, people have quite a suspicious people have quite a suspicious sort of point of view on on care facilities and things like that. There was like Winterbourne View and like incidents of like horrendous abuse within care homes, which is indefensible, disgusting. Those people should all be put in prison. Um, Although one thing I would say is that wasn't representative of my experience working in a care home. For the most part, everybody I worked with was definitely had the right intentions. Definitely, was trying their best under the circumstances they were in. Um, there were definitely some people who were not good carers, but they didn't last long. And I think like one of the important things there's like I understand that it's like most people think there's this perception that like people only go into like residential care homes because their family doesn't care about them or something. The actual truth is that some people just some families, whether it be the parents of a child or whatever, they just can't. They're not they themselves are not cut out to look after anyone, let alone they can barely look after themselves. So by that metric, sometimes a residential supported living place is like the best outcome. I've seen people who come from like quite institutionalized uh pasts go into like a modern residential care facility and like thrive, like go to college and like have friend groups outside and gain independence and become less reliant on the support workers. And when that happens, that to me is like the most beautiful thing. When you meet somebody and they need like two members of staff when they go out, and then and then like maybe 5 years later, they're like going out on their own. Like that's what it's about, and that's incredible. Unfortunately, you don't get to see that very often. That is a real rarity, but I would say that is the goal a lot of the time. The independence and autonomy thing. Normal emoji says, "You rock, Jen. Thanks for talking about this. Thank you." I really don't. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm just a support worker. Um, you go into these jobs and you are given lots of training and you are shown the way things are the right way to be done and things get updated, and it taught me a lot about the world, and it taught me a lot about disability, and it taught me a lot about society, I guess. And as I say, the sort of the areas in which that we're not doing enough. But it also I don't know. It bummed me out a lot. It really did bum me out quite a lot. By the fifth year, I was sort of like, "Oh, this is getting a bit like, don't know about this anymore." Um, I do love working in learning disabilities, though. I do love, I do love it. I think I couldn't imagine myself working in a residential care home like that again, but I could imagine myself doing something at a day centre or at college, working with people with learning disabilities. Definitely could imagine that. Anyway, what is this? The flipping learning disabilities podcast? What is this? The flipping residential living? What is this? The CQC podcast? The Care Quality Commission? I don't think so. It's like there's only so many things that I can get on my soapbox about on a day-to-day basis, and I should chill out. I haven't even worked in that world for years. Jen Ives, disability advocate. Yeah, like that. Okay, well, listen, that I will always be that. Um, I I obviously am not disabled myself, and I definitely don't know everything, and I would never claim to understand all of it. All I have is my own perspective on things. All I have is my own experiences, and obviously my experiences come more from the carer side of things. But um but I do have, I mean, my part, the reason, the way I got into even doing that line of work was because I was a young carer for a disabled parent. I supported my mum for about 5 years through motor neurons disease. So that was sort of like my education, my first proper education in sort of like disability. And then I went on to work in it in a more professional capacity. Um, so like I'm not an expert. I would never claim to be. I'm not trying to speak for people with disabilities or disabled people. I know not everybody likes it when you refer to them as people with disability. I know there's like, what is it? What is it? I think it's a personal preference thing. Um, I'll be honest, like you could speak to two different people and they have two completely different points of view on whether or not, you say disabled people or I am disabled or uh, people of disabled experience or whatever. It's like whatever you want, but it's the point is I have I do have some life experience with it. And, you know, one of the most interesting ways for non-disabled people to think about it is just, it's like a selfish perspective, but um, we all will experience disability at some point in our lives. Um, Most people don't get out of a lifetime without some disability, and it can be quite damaging, therefore, to think of yourself um, separate from it. So yeah, it's something that is on my mind quite a lot, if I'm honest. As I said, I think there's so much great, well, even just culture, like even just like I was saying before about the music scene and the filmmaking scene, and not that they're the only things that have value, obviously, but it's just stuff that people don't know about, the disabled culture. Okay, this is interesting from Cat There's discussion about person first versus disability first language. Deaf and autistic people tend to prefer disability first language, even though that isn't a rule. Okay, I didn't know that. That's very interesting. Because, yeah, I think as a non disabled person, if that's even the term, um, is like, I think the faux pas comes from person centered language is obviously like tends to be most people's kind of go to in terms of dignity and respect, right? You want people to know that you think of them as a person, especially if the minority that that person is a part of is so often not treated as if they are a person. So my natural inclination would be to say like a person with disabilities. But this is where things get complicated. I also totally understand, totally like am open to the idea that like disability is itself an identity and it's not something to be ashamed of or to put secondary. And again, I guess again it's just that thing, isn't it? It just comes down to personal preference. And um I mean my job actually I don't even know my job right now that I do, my day job is an access facilitator working with disabled people. I don't know why I'm talking about it in the past tense as if it's like I'm not doing that now. I'd still do that. But I guess it's just the way I do it now is different from before. But thank you for that cat scent. That's definitely very, very interesting to think about. Um, I guess what I would say to that is listen, disabled people, you figure out what you want me to say. Tell me, and I will. I'm joking, obviously. That's just a little joke. Kind of, you know, you're all different. Uh I've run out of steam a bit here. I've gone for an hour and 23. Um but and now I'm just rambling about disability issues that don't even have it like I'm not qualified necessarily to speak on. I feel like that's one of the bad things that happens when you stream live is you end up talking with authority on things that you don't know anything about. I know something about it, uh, but I could always know more. If you are, um, or now I feel self conscious about well, how do I say it? If you are disabled and you are a viewer of my podcast, um, thank you and lovely to have you here. I do think about accessibility actually, and one thing with my podcast is, you know, over the kind of first couple of months of doing it, I did receive some feedback that was like, "Oh, your podcast is kind of difficult to watch because there's like flickering on the screen." Like I used to use this like overlay of like a 16 millimeter film flickering because I thought it looked Hollywood and cool. But one of the feedbacks I was getting was like, "Oh, it makes me like close to like a seizure," or it's like I don't, I can't, I can't watch it, so I like got rid of it. Um, if you ever do have any advice for accessibility, um, within reason, like let me know. Like I'm I unfortunately do not have the time to sit and audio describe everything that's going on, for example. But if there was some sort of tool that I could implement into it in order for that to be a thing that you could have access to, then just let me know about it and I'll try my best to do it. But but yeah, I don't know. Just tell me. I want you to say I'm Jen and I'm queen of the world. Okay. I'm Jen, and I'm queen of the world. Don't feel like you shouldn't talk about it. You could even call us goblins, and I wouldn't care. You're saying things I've never heard in my 30 years of being disabled on this earth. Really? What haven't you heard? That surprises me. But hey, yeah, I'll talk about it. I'll continue to talk about it. I ask people to spend 10 minutes a week reading the sidebar of the Disability News Service. Okay, well, maybe, I mean, maybe. While sitting on a throne of skulls. More people need to talk about it. Thank you for doing it. Hey, it's fine. I don't really feel like I'm doing anything substantial. But yeah, like we're living in a time where like even I've noticed because I do still work in some regard in disability. I like to keep my ear to the ground a little bit, and I used to listen to some podcasts and listen to a few like different like radio shows and stuff. And guess what? Like they're all going away. Like over the past couple of months, like we've lost like a few of them, and that concerns me a little bit. So, hey, if you're a disabled person watching this and you want to start your own podcast, that'd be cool. We need more cool, creative, disabled voices out there. So, um, anyway, that's it. I have never heard of the film festival and music scene. Yeah, it's called the Oscar Bright Film Festival. Let me just find a link to it one sec. Oscar Bright Film Festival. I don't know. Can I put a link in here in the comments? Yeah, go on that Oscar Bright Film Festival. And then in terms of like the disabled music scene, I don't know what's going on right now in regards to that. Like who are the big bands, who are the like ones like on the festival circuit and stuff. But I will do a bit of research and maybe talk about it on an upcoming episode or something. Um I actually have some ideas for some guests on that sort of like topic as well that could be cool. Um but yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in to what is probably quite a rambly, um, weird episode. I'm gonna record like a proper episode tomorrow. So I'm back basically. Lobotomy World is back. Um, that's the point of it. Oh, I'm sorry. You told your girlfriend it was called Osaka Film Festival. That's because that's what I said it was. I called it that. So that's not your fault. That's my fault, Jobs. I referred to it. But it's not in Osaka. You don't have to go to Japan to witness it. It's actually in Brighton, I think. And in fact, Brighton, if you don't know Brighton, it's like a seaside town in the United Kingdom. And they actually have a pretty vibrant, creative disability scene. Probably one of the best that I've seen in terms of like the support that is available. And that's where I worked. I worked in Brighton as I used to live there. Um, but anyway, that's enough of me rambling. But yes, anyway, have a lovely evening, and I guess I'll see you for a proper episode tomorrow. Bye. Bye. See you later. Bye. Bye.